Imagine going back 420 million years. No dinosaurs, just this. A smooth, gray obelisk, 30 feet tall, and wider than a human. No birds chirping, no insects buzzing, just these pillars ruling the entire Earth. But here's the problem. Trees didn't exist yet. Evolution hadn't invented wood. In 1859, they called it a tree, a primitive pine. It was the logical conclusion. But when they looked inside, the tree theory fell apart. No rings, just a bundle of tubes. For 150 years, it was a mystery. A giant lichen? A rolled-up moss mat? Anything but the weirdest possibility. Finally, in 2007, chemical analysis gave the answer. It wasn't photosynthesizing. It was consuming matter, organic matter. It was a gargantuan fungus, a mega mushroom. This pillar was just the fruit. The real body was a massive network of mycelium underground. Those tubes were hyphae, the exact same threads that make up a common mushroom today. But this one was built different. It wove its hyphae so tight, it became as hard as wood. It had to be. Otherwise, the first strong wind would have snapped it like a dry twig. How could it grow so big? No predators. The biggest thing on land was a few inches long. Nothing wanted to eat it. It was allowed to grow as much as it wanted. And it had an all-you-can-eat buffet. The Earth was covered in a thick carpet of moss and algae. Its underground network was a waste management system, recycling entire continents of moss. With infinite food, it could afford to stand tall, while plants struggled to evolve leaves. Its goal, launch its children as far as possible. But on the ground, the air is stagnant. By growing tall, it found a superpower. Up there, the wind is faster, more consistent. Its offspring could catch that breeze and travel for miles. Aggressive colonizers. They were the undisputed kings for 50 million years, longer than T-Rex. Their downfall? Plants were tinkering with a new superpower called lignin. Enter Archaeopteryx, the first true tree. For the first time, the fungal pillars weren't alone. These trees created shadows. And in those shadows, the fungal pillar's food source began to die. But worse, tree roots roam apart the bedrock, creating deep, nutrient-rich soil for the first time. With deep soil came a new cast of characters. Smaller, faster decomposers. The world became too complex, too fast. The giant, slow pillar was outcompeted. By the end of the Devonian, the giant spires were gone. But don't feel bad. Giant mushrooms found a new way. Meet the humongous fungus, one organism covering nearly 4 square miles. It weighs 35,000 tons, larger than any prototaxites could ever dream of being. Instead of pillars, they became the internet of the forest, connecting everything. Today, almost every tree is connected to a fungal network, a partnership. The pillars didn't die because they were weak. They died because the world grew up. In a world of changing climate and clearing forests, could the pillars ever return? The answer is no. The competition is too fierce. Decomposers are too efficient. The age of pillars was a unique 50 million year experiment. A time with no rules. Just a mushroom. And honestly, I'm pretty cool with the trees of today. A 50-million-year reign, ended by the invention of wood. Its legacy lives on in the soil and in our forests. From simple tubes to the internet of the forest, evolution's next move. For 50 million years, these shadows were the only things that moved on land. A single spoor, carried by the wind, could found a new dynasty. If you traveled back, you'd be safe. They weren't predators, just giant mushrooms. A life cycle unlike anything before or since. While trees burned, the fungal network below waited, patient. After the fire, the network was ready to help the forest rebuild. In your hand, the difference is clear. One is wood. The other is something else entirely. Under the microscope, the truth was undeniable. These aren't plant cells. 2007. The data was in. It wasn't a plant. The impossible was true. Were they individuals or one vast, connected mind? We may never know. They dominated not just the land, but the entire horizon. As the first vertebrates crawled onto land, the pillars were there to greet them. On foggy mornings, they looked like islands in the sky. The first soil life was just beginning, a tiny omen of the change to come. In the end, they were consumed by the very world they helped create. From spores to leaves, the torch was passed. Today, we still hunt their descendants, for different reasons. A 26-foot-tall question mark from our planet's past. Under the same stars, these giants stood in silence for millions of years. In our imagination, they've finally found their place. The cycle continues. Every drop of rain feeds the network below. Through science, they live again. As data, as knowledge. At its peak, it wasn't a crown. It was a launch pad for the future. Seasons change, but the network endures. Then, and now, we walk on giants every day. We just can't see them. Give and take. The oldest deal on Earth. They're still here. Not as pillars, but as the foundation.